Prepare yourself for a journey of mystery, legacy, and unyielding courage that will challenge everything you thought you knew. Don't forget to subscribe for more gripping tales like this one. Now let the story begin. Ethan stood in the damp chill of early autumn, his eyes fixed on the weathered headstone that marked his beloved grandmother's final resting place. The heavy rain blurred the outlines of the cemetery, each raindrop echoing the sorrow in his heart. For years, his grandmother had been his guide, a warm beacon after the devastating loss of his parents. Today, as mourners slowly drifted away, leaving him alone with memories and grief, he felt the burden of solitude and unanswered questions. As the sky grayed further, an unexpected movement caught his attention. Near the old wrought-iron gate, an elderly woman, cloaked in a faded shawl and with eyes that seemed to hold untold secrets, lingered quietly. With deliberate steps, she approached Ethan. Without a word of preamble, she extended a trembling hand holding a weathered envelope. "Your grandmother wanted you to have this," she whispered in a voice that trembled between urgency and sorrow. In that moment, Ethan recognized the delicate, looping script on the envelope, a script that unmistakably belonged to his grandmother. Before he could utter a single question, the mysterious woman melted into the swirling mist, leaving Ethan clutching the envelope like a fragile relic of a past that refused to let go. Standing alone amidst the stone markers and swirling memories, Ethan felt an unsettling mixture of hope and trepidation. What secret message could his grandmother have left him? The envelope, heavy with the scent of old paper and memories, seemed to vibrate with unspoken promises. As he carefully tucked it under his coat, Ethan vowed to discover the truth behind this unexpected gift. The cold rain mingled with his tears as he retraced his steps back to the modest apartment he shared with the ghosts of his past. Each droplet that fell seemed to echo the rhythm of his heartbeat, a steady, persistent reminder that life marched on even in grief. The silence of the cemetery was broken only by the soft rustling of leaves and the distant hum of the city. In that solitude, Ethan's mind raced with images of his grandmother's gentle smile and the warm embrace of her stories of a family legacy that she had once hinted at in quiet, secret moments. Had she hidden something precious, a secret meant only for him? Inside his small, dimly lit apartment later that night, the envelope rested on the worn wooden table as Ethan hesitated. With trembling fingers, he broke the fragile seal. The room filled with the faint aroma of ink and aged paper, and as he slowly unfolded the letter, he realized that the contents were written in the familiar, loving hand of the woman who had nurtured him all his life. In that solitary moment, grief gave way to a flicker of curiosity. Little did he know, the message within would ignite a journey into a past shrouded in mystery, secrets, and an unexpected destiny that would soon reshape his very existence. In the quiet solitude of his apartment, Ethan's heart pounded as he sat at his scarred wooden desk. The letter lay before him, its edges worn as if it had traveled through time. Slowly, he began to read the carefully penned words. His grandmother's voice seemed to echo from the faded ink, a blend of warmth and urgency that beckoned him to look deeper into his own history. She spoke of a legacy hidden for generations, something beyond mere wealth, a treasure of purpose and honor that had been safeguarded by their ancestors. Nestled at the bottom of the letter was a folded, hand-drawn map of the very cemetery where he had just said his final goodbyes. The map was marked with careful strokes and an unmistakable symbol, a small X beside an isolated, crumbling tomb. In a neat scrawl underneath, a single, bold word stood out: dig. The word seemed to pulse with a life of its own, stirring emotions Ethan had long suppressed. He reread the letter several times, each reading deepening the mystery. His grandmother had never spoken openly of any hidden secrets, yet here it was, an invitation to explore a past she had guarded so dearly. As Ethan examined the map under the soft glow of a desk lamp, doubts battled with curiosity. Every line and scribbled note on the paper hinted at something lost to time, a secret that might finally explain the enigmatic family stories his grandmother had once shared on stormy nights. The rain against the window pane echoed the steady beat of his anxious heart, as if urging him to embark on a journey of discovery. Could it be that his destiny was entwined with a secret legacy buried beneath layers of history? The letter revealed fragments of long-forgotten struggles, a past marked by sacrifice and resistance. His grandmother's words hinted at a treasure not measured in coin, but in the enduring spirit of their ancestors, a resource to be used for a higher cause. Ethan's mind raced with images of shadowed figures, ancient secrets, and a lineage that had weathered storms far worse than his own grief. With every sentence, he felt both the pull of an irresistible mystery and the weight of responsibility. By the time the lamplight danced on the faded parchment, Ethan knew there was no turning back. The choice laid before him was stark: remain in the familiar confines of sorrow, or step into the unknown to unearth truths that could redefine his life. The letter and its accompanying map had ignited a spark, transforming his mourning into a mission. The gentle assurance of his grandmother's hand in every word filled him with a quiet resolve. Tomorrow, under the shroud of night, he would return to the cemetery to follow the cryptic instructions etched in the past. The path ahead was uncertain, but Ethan sensed that the secrets buried there would soon unravel the tapestry of his own destiny. When midnight arrived, Ethan found himself drawn back to the cemetery, as if guided by a force beyond mortal understanding. Cloaked in a heavy raincoat and armed with nothing more than a sturdy flashlight and an old shovel passed down through his family, he stepped into the silent graveyard. The mist swirled around ancient stone monuments and neglected graves, and every step felt like a journey into a realm where time had long since lost its meaning. The map's marked spot tugged at his thoughts as he navigated the labyrinth of headstones and forgotten memorials. In the eerie luminescence of his flashlight, Ethan finally located the tomb indicated on the map, a decrepit stone structure, half consumed by ivy and the relentless march of time. As he set down his shovel, the ground under his feet seemed to whisper secrets of the past. The air was thick with anticipation and the subtle scent of earth and decay. With a deep breath, he began to dig near the base of the tombstone, each thrust of the shovel a step closer to uncovering what lay hidden beneath layers of history and sorrow. Minutes turned into what felt like hours as the damp soil gave up its secrets slowly. Doubt crept into his mind. What if the entire endeavor was nothing more than a cruel trick of fate? Yet, his determination was unyielding. The sound of the shovel biting into something hard jolted him from his swirling thoughts. Brushing aside the clinging earth, Ethan's eyes widened at the sight of a wooden panel, worn smooth by the passage of time and marked with strange, archaic carvings. Heart pounding, he knelt beside the panel, his breath fogging in the cold night air. With careful, deliberate movements, he inserted a crowbar and pried it open. The panel creaked ominously as it revealed a narrow stone staircase spiraling downward into darkness. A rush of adrenaline surged through Ethan. This hidden passage, untouched for decades, was a portal to a secret his family had guarded. In that moment, he felt the presence of his ancestors, urging him to continue. As he prepared to descend the narrow steps, the oppressive silence was broken only by the distant rumble of thunder and the soft patter of rain. Each step felt heavy with expectation and the promise of revelation. The darkness below was absolute, save for the thin beam of his flashlight that carved out a path into the unknown. Ethan's mind churned with a mix of trepidation and resolve, knowing that whatever lay at the end of this staircase would irrevocably change his understanding of his past. The graveyard, once a symbol of finality, had transformed into the threshold of a journey that reached far beyond the boundaries of death. With one last steadying breath, he stepped forward into the abyss, leaving behind the familiar world for the secrets of a hidden legacy waiting to be unearthed. Ethan's descent into the darkness was measured and cautious. The narrow stone steps creaked underfoot as he ventured deeper into the subterranean passage. The beam of his flashlight wavered against the damp walls, illuminating centuries-old inscriptions and enigmatic carvings that seemed to whisper stories of a forgotten era. Each step forward intensified the sensation that he was crossing a threshold not just of space, but of time itself. At last, the staircase opened into a vast chamber, its walls constructed from cold, rough-hewn stone that bore the marks of countless ages. The air was thick with the dust of generations, and tiny particles danced in the beam of his light like silent specters. The chamber was sparsely furnished, yet every object seemed to hold profound significance. Old wooden crates, their surfaces darkened by years of neglect, were stacked against the walls, and in the center of the room stood an ancient table scarred by the passage of time. On the table lay a single leather-bound journal. The cover was cracked and faded, but the embossed initials on the spine shone faintly in the light. With a sense of reverence, Ethan reached out and opened the journal. The pages were brittle with age, filled with elegant cursive that chronicled a story far removed from his own recent sorrow. As he began to read, the words of an ancestor, a man who had once fought against insurmountable odds, unfolded before him. The narrative spoke of a time when injustice was rampant, when courage and defiance were the only weapons against oppression. Each carefully inscribed word resonated with Ethan, as if the journal was a living relic of his family's struggle for freedom and dignity. His heart raced as he read about clandestine meetings, daring escapes, and the building of underground networks that defied the tyranny of the day. The final entry, written in a hurried, almost desperate hand, sent shivers down his spine. If you are reading this, our fight is not over. In that moment, Ethan understood that the journal was not merely a historical record. It was a call to arms, a beacon urging him to reclaim the legacy of his forebears. The chamber seemed to close in around him, filled with the voices of those long gone, yet still present in spirit. The journal connected him to a past that was both awe-inspiring and burdened with responsibility. Ethan felt a profound kinship with the brave soul who had fought for justice despite overwhelming odds. With every page he turned, he discovered not only the trials of a bygone era but also the seeds of hope that had been sown to ensure that the struggle would continue. In that silent, hallowed space, the weight of his own destiny pressed upon him. The secrets hidden in the chamber, and the journal, demanded that he choose a path, one that embraced the legacy of resistance and sacrifice, and one that could redefine the future for generations to come. In the quiet solitude of the hidden chamber, Ethan pored over the time-worn pages of the journal. As the soft glow of his flashlight danced over faded ink and delicate sketches, he began to piece together a narrative that was both harrowing and heroic. The journal recounted the life of his great-great-grandfather, a man who had been born into unimaginable hardship, yet who had risen to challenge an oppressive system. According to the entries, his ancestor had once been a slave, forced to toil under conditions designed to break the spirit. Yet, even in the darkest hours, he had harbored a fierce determination for freedom and justice. The journal detailed clandestine meetings held in the dead of night, where whispers of rebellion and dreams of a better future filled the air. His great-great-grandfather had not only fought for his own liberation, but had become a guiding force for others trapped in the shackles of tyranny. With audacity and unwavering resolve, he had orchestrated secret networks, underground passageways, and safe houses that allowed many to escape oppression. Ethan's heart ached as he read about the sacrifices made by his forebear, a man who had risked everything for the sake of a future free from cruelty. The journal recounted how, in a daring act of defiance, his ancestor had embezzled funds from corrupt officials, money that was never meant to be hoarded but used as a means of resistance and aid. Before his capture, and the inevitable brutality that followed, he had hidden the last of that wealth. The secret was meant to serve a greater purpose, to empower those who would continue the struggle for justice. Each word etched into the brittle pages resonated deeply with Ethan, stirring emotions that transcended time. He could almost see his ancestors' determined eyes, feel the palpable tension of those dangerous nights, and hear the fervent whispers of hope in the face of overwhelming adversity. The legacy of this remarkable man was not just one of hardship, but of defiant courage, a reminder that even in the face of insurmountable odds, one person's resolve could alter the course of history. As Ethan reached the final pages of the journal, a sense of destiny enveloped him. His great-great-grandfather had left behind more than just a record of past struggles. He had bequeathed a choice. The hidden wealth was not a mere fortune to be squandered, but a tool meant to continue the battle against injustice, a call to action for whoever discovered it. In that moment, Ethan felt the weight of the legacy settle on his shoulders. The truth of his ancestors' sacrifice demanded that he honor the memory by embracing a higher purpose, a mission to help those still oppressed by the forces of inequality. With newfound determination, Ethan closed the journal, his resolve hardening. The past was no longer a distant memory. It was a vibrant, living force, guiding him toward a future defined by hope and justice. With the echoes of his ancestors' legacy resonating in his heart, Ethan turned his attention back to the cavernous chamber. As he carefully examined the far corner, partially hidden behind a stack of decrepit crates, he noticed the subtle outline of a wooden box wedged into a crevice. Its surface was marred by time and neglect, the locks encrusted with rust. Intrigued, Ethan knelt down and painstakingly pried the box free from its confinement. The moment the lid creaked open, a gust of stale air swept over him, carrying with it the faint aroma of old paper and forgotten memories. Inside lay stacks of weathered money bundled neatly with faded documents. Atop the trove, a final letter rested in a protective envelope, its handwriting unmistakably elegant and familiar. Ethan's heart pounded as he reached for the envelope, aware that this treasure was not merely a collection of riches, but a vital piece of his family's story. Unfolding the letter with trembling hands, he read his grandmother's words once again, now imbued with a sense of immediacy and purpose. "Ethan," the letter began, "if you've come this far, you've already taken the first step in uncovering our family's truth. This wealth was never meant to secure one life. It was meant to empower many, to uplift those burdened by oppression. Use it wisely." Each sentence was a testament to the sacrifices and dreams of those who had come before him, a bridge connecting the struggles of the past with the promise of a better future. The documents inside the box revealed even more: detailed records of secret transactions, maps of hidden safe houses, and plans for a network of support that his ancestor had painstakingly constructed. The money, though faded by time, bore the weight of history, a silent witness to acts of defiance and hope. As Ethan carefully spread the contents out on an old cloth, he felt the enormity of the responsibility before him. This was not a fortune to be kept for personal gain, but a legacy entrusted to him, a legacy that demanded he act with honor and resolve. For several long minutes, Ethan sat in the quiet of the hidden chamber, absorbing the full magnitude of his discovery. The treasure was more than material wealth. It was a testament to a lifetime of struggle and sacrifice. His grandmother's final message resonated in every fiber of his being, urging him to use this inheritance as a means to fight for justice, to create change in a world still marred by inequality. With the burden of expectation heavy on his shoulders, Ethan knew that his life had irrevocably changed. The path ahead was fraught with danger and uncertainty, but the legacy of his forebears shone like a guiding star, illuminating a purpose greater than any one man's ambitions. In that moment, as the ancient chamber bore silent witness to his resolve, Ethan made a solemn vow. He would honor his family's sacrifice and use this hidden treasure to forge a future of hope, unity, and justice. Returning to his modest apartment in the early light of dawn, Ethan carried the weight of the wooden box like a physical manifestation of his newfound destiny. The small, cluttered space seemed even more insignificant in the face of the monumental secret he now held. Carefully placing the box on his battered dining table, he began to sort through the contents once more. The neatly bundled money and meticulous documents lay before him, each piece whispering promises of a life transformed. As the morning progressed, the initial surge of adrenaline gave way to a slow, persistent rumble of inner conflict. The sheer magnitude of wealth offered a tantalizing escape, a chance to vanish from the burdens of his troubled past and start anew. With the hidden fortune at his fingertips, Ethan could leave behind the painful memories, the endless responsibilities, and even the looming threats he now suspected lurked in the shadows. The thought of a fresh start in a distant city, free from the relentless pull of legacy and obligation, was dangerously tempting. For long minutes, he paced his small apartment, the rhythmic tapping of his footsteps echoing in the emptiness of the room. Every new idea seemed to suggest an easier path, a route away from the immense pressure of honoring his family's sacrifice. He imagined a life where the hidden treasure could secure his future without the complications of a historical duty. In his mind, The alluring possibility of personal freedom was both seductive and deceptively simple. Yet, as his thoughts drifted to those cherished childhood memories, Ethan could not escape the voice of his grandmother. Her gentle lessons, spoken softly during quiet evenings and interwoven into every heartfelt story, reminded him that life was not meant to be lived in selfish isolation. She had raised him to care for others, to stand up against injustice, and to see wealth not as a means to indulge personal desires, but as a tool to empower those in need. Every page of the journal he had uncovered, every document in the wooden box, echoed this sentiment with a resonance that made escape seem not only unthinkable, but deeply dishonorable. In a moment of introspection, Ethan sat at the window, watching as the early light gradually banished the remnants of night. The internal struggle raged within him, the call to flee and the noble duty to continue the fight. The temptation to run was real and potent, yet the memory of his ancestors' sacrifices and his grandmother's unwavering faith in him steeled his resolve. The wealth before him was not a ticket to personal salvation, but a legacy of resistance, crafted by hands that had fought for justice at great personal risk. With a deep, resolute breath, Ethan resolved that he would not succumb to the lure of an easier life. Instead, he would honor the memory of those who had paved the way by using this treasure to light the path forward for others who suffered under the weight of injustice. In that quiet, soul-searching moment, the temptation to run was transformed into the fierce determination to stand and fight for a legacy much larger than himself. In the days that followed, Ethan felt the heavy burden of his newfound responsibility intensify. The secret of the hidden treasure weighed on him like a silent call to action, yet the path forward was shrouded in uncertainty. Unsure of how to proceed, he knew that he could not shoulder this monumental task alone. With a heart filled with equal parts determination and apprehension, Ethan decided to seek guidance from someone he trusted implicitly, a longtime friend and mentor named Mr. Bennett. Mr. Bennett was the elderly owner of a quaint, time-worn bookstore that had long been a sanctuary for those seeking wisdom amid the clamor of modern life. His reputation for compassion, integrity, and a quiet sense of justice had earned him the deep respect of the community. Ethan remembered how his grandmother had spoken of Mr. Bennett with reverence, describing him as a man whose quiet strength had often served as a beacon in turbulent times. Determined to honor that legacy, Ethan arranged to meet him at the bookstore in the early afternoon. When Ethan arrived, the familiar creak of the wooden door and the comforting smell of old paper and ink enveloped him. Mr. Bennett greeted him with a gentle smile, his eyes reflecting years of accumulated knowledge and compassion. After a few moments of small talk that served as a bridge between past and present, Ethan laid the contents of the box before him. He explained everything: the mysterious letter, the map, the hidden chamber, the journal, and the secret legacy of his great-great-grandfather. As he spoke, his voice wavered between uncertainty and resolve, the magnitude of his revelation weighing on him with every word. Mr. Bennett listened intently, his expression shifting from quiet surprise to deep contemplation. After a long, reflective silence, he finally spoke in a measured tone. "Ethan, what you have discovered is more than just treasure. It is a legacy, a call to continue a fight that many before you have waged. You must understand that with great wealth comes not just opportunity, but also great danger. Money like this attracts attention from those who wish to control it for their own ends." His words were gentle yet firm, urging Ethan to tread carefully. The elderly man continued, "I have seen many people caught in the crossroads of temptation and duty. Remember, the true worth of this inheritance lies not in what it can buy, but in how it can be used to lift others up. Your grandmother believed in you, and so did your ancestor. They left you this path because they knew you were meant to carry their vision forward." Ethan absorbed every word, feeling a renewed sense of clarity. The guidance of Mr. Bennett was not just practical advice, it was a reaffirmation of his purpose. The bookstore, with its quiet corners and shelves full of forgotten wisdom, became a silent ally in his quest. As he left Mr. Bennett's side that day, Ethan felt more resolute than ever. The treasure, the legacy, and the lessons of the past were all converging into one undeniable truth. His life was no longer solely his own, but a continuation of a noble struggle that spanned generations. With Mr. Bennet's counsel echoing in his mind, Ethan stepped out into the light of a new day, ready to face the challenges that lay ahead. In the weeks following his meeting with Mr. Bennet, Ethan began to put the first tentative steps toward deciphering the intricate web of secrets left behind by his ancestors. However, as he delved deeper into the mystery of the hidden treasure, a disquieting sensation crept into his daily life, a feeling of being watched. At first, it was subtle, a shadow flitting past the window on a rainy evening, a lingering glance from a stranger on a crowded bus, or the inexplicable sense that someone had been standing just beyond the reach of the streetlights as he walked home at dusk. One particularly chilly evening, as Ethan returned to his apartment after a long day spent poring over the historical documents and maps in Mr. Bennet's bookstore, he noticed a sleek, black car idling a few blocks away. Its presence was unnerving, too deliberate to be mere coincidence. The car's windows were tinted, obscuring its occupants, but every instinct told him that it was following his every move. The sensation of being under constant surveillance was magnified by the furtive glances he began to catch in the reflective surfaces of shop windows and darkened alleyways. Anxiety mingled with determination as Ethan started to piece together the possible implications of his discoveries. Was it that the hidden wealth had attracted the attention of individuals or organizations with ulterior motives? Perhaps remnants of the corrupt regime that his great-great-grandfather had once defied were now seeking to reclaim what they believed was rightfully theirs. Every shadow and every distant sound became a reminder that he was treading on dangerous ground. Despite the creeping fear, Ethan knew that retreat was not an option. The legacy of his ancestors demanded that he press forward, even if it meant facing the potential perils head-on. In the quiet hours of the night, as he reviewed maps and cross-referenced old documents, his mind raced with theories and possible scenarios. The evidence hinted at a broader conspiracy, one that linked the hidden treasure not only to personal fortune, but to a network of power and suppression that had spanned generations. Ethan resolved to take precautions. He began altering his daily routine, taking longer, winding routes home, and varying his schedule to confound anyone who might be tracking him. Yet, the more he tried to shake the persistent presence, the more determined he became to use the treasure for its intended purpose, to empower those who had long suffered under injustice. Each careful step he took was measured against the risk of drawing further attention. The days turned into nights filled with tense vigilance, and every creak in his apartment or distant engine sound left him momentarily frozen in apprehension. Despite the constant pressure of those watchful eyes, Ethan refused to be cowed into inaction. Instead, he doubled his efforts to decipher the plans hidden in the documents and began quietly reaching out to trusted contacts in the community. With every new lead, he realized that the true battle was not just against unseen enemies, but against a system determined to keep the legacy of oppression alive. As the threat of discovery loomed larger, Ethan steeled himself for the inevitable confrontation, knowing that the path he had chosen was as perilous as it was righteous. Faced with the dual pressures of a hidden legacy and the shadow of potential adversaries, Ethan realized that a bold, carefully considered strategy was his only path forward. In the quiet of Mr. Bennet's bookstore, now transformed into an informal war room of ideas and historical clues, he convened a meeting with a small group of trusted allies. These were individuals who shared his vision for justice, community organizers, legal advocates, and dedicated members of local charities. Their common purpose was clear: to use the hidden treasure as a catalyst for change, to empower those marginalized by society, and to counter the dark forces that sought to reclaim it for selfish gain. Ethan outlined his plan in measured, determined tones. The money, carefully hidden away for decades, would not be used for personal luxury, but channeled into a secret foundation. This foundation would support education, legal aid, affordable housing, and community development projects, initiatives designed to uplift those oppressed by systemic injustice. Each ally was entrusted with a specific role, from managing discrete financial channels to coordinating with local community leaders. The plan was meticulous. Funds would be dispersed in small, untraceable amounts to avoid drawing undue attention from those who might seek to seize control of the wealth. Mr. Bennet, whose steady guidance had become Ethan's anchor throughout this tumultuous journey, emphasized the importance of secrecy and collaboration. Our strength lies in unity and in the conviction that this treasure is a tool for transformation, not for personal enrichment, he reminded the assembled group. The discussion turned to strategies for protecting the initiative from prying eyes. They decided to set up layered systems of accountability and safe channels for transferring funds, measures designed to confuse any potential adversaries who might be monitoring financial activities. Over the course of several long hours, plans were drawn, roles assigned, and contingencies mapped out. The Allies agreed to keep the operation under wraps until they could build a solid foundation that would withstand external scrutiny. Each person present felt the gravity of the task. Ethan's voice, though steady, carried the weight of a legacy forged in the crucible of oppression and sacrifice. The blueprint of a better future took shape on that worn wooden table, blending ancient wisdom with modern resolve. As the meeting drew to a close, Ethan couldn't shake the lingering sense that time was of the essence. The more they delayed, the greater the risk of exposure. With the plan firmly in place, he resolved to begin the first phase immediately, discreetly channeling a portion of the funds to a pilot project in a struggling neighborhood known for its resilience in the face of adversity. The plan was not without risks, but every step was taken with careful deliberation and an unyielding commitment to justice. Leaving the bookstore that night, Ethan felt a renewed determination. The clandestine nature of their efforts, combined with the courage of his newfound allies, lit a spark of hope in the darkness. Even as the threat of those watchful eyes continued to hover at the edges of his life, Ethan's plan represented a bold stand against a legacy of oppression, a defiant promise that the wealth entrusted to his family would serve a purpose far greater than personal gain. It was the first tangible step in reclaiming a past that had been marred by suffering, and in forging a future defined by empowerment and unity. In the weeks that followed the inception of his audacious plan, Ethan's newfound mission began to take root in the community. The pilot projects funded through discreet channels sparked small but tangible improvements: a renovated community center, legal aid for those in need, and scholarships for local students. Yet, as the foundation gained momentum, so too did the intensity of the threats that had been lurking in the shadows. One evening, after returning from a late meeting with community leaders, Ethan's apartment door creaked open to reveal a scene of chaos. The living space he once considered a sanctuary had been ransacked. Drawers lay open and their contents scattered like confetti, and the wooden box containing his family's secret treasure had been tampered with. Every shattered object and disarranged piece of furniture was a clear, sinister message, a warning to desist, to abandon the pursuit of a legacy that threatened to upset the established order. Staring at the remnants of his life, Ethan felt a surge of anger mixed with grief. The threat was no longer an abstract concept. It had become brutally real. The attack on his home was a direct challenge to the very principles his ancestors had fought for. As he swept up fragments of broken glass and scattered documents, he recalled the sacrifices of his great-great-grandfather and the quiet guidance of his grandmother. Their voices, etched in memory and in the yellowed pages of the journal, urged him not to be cowed by intimidation. Instead, they emboldened him to stand firm in his convictions. That night, as thunder rolled overhead and rain battered the city streets, Ethan made a decision that would irrevocably alter the course of his mission. Rather than retreating into the shadows, he chose to confront the legacy of his family head-on. With a mixture of trepidation and determination, he gathered every scrap of evidence, the documents, the maps, and even the journal, and prepared to share his story with the community. He knew that exposing the truth behind the hidden treasure would not only rally support, but also expose those who sought to control it for their own nefarious purposes. In a series of hushed conversations with trusted community leaders and sympathetic media figures, Ethan revealed the remarkable history of his lineage, a tale of oppression, rebellion, and unwavering hope. He recounted the extraordinary legacy of his ancestor, whose sacrifices had laid the foundation for a network of resistance, and the secret mission entrusted to him by his grandmother. His public declaration was not a plea for pity but a call to action, a demand for justice and accountability. Standing before a small gathering in a modest community hall, Ethan's voice resonated with passion and clarity. He explained that the money was not meant to enrich one man, but to empower an entire community. The public revelation ignited a wave of support and outrage in equal measure. While some saw him as a beacon of hope, others, those with vested interests in maintaining the status quo, saw him as a threat. With every word he spoke, Ethan reclaimed the narrative of his family struggle. The ransacked apartment was no longer a symbol of defeat, but a catalyst for change. In that moment, facing the painful echoes of the past, Ethan vowed to press on, no matter the cost, to ensure that the sacrifices of his ancestors would not be in vain. In the wake of his courageous public declaration, the community began to transform in unexpected ways. Ethan's story, once hidden in the depths of a forgotten past, spread like wildfire, igniting a collective spirit of resilience and hope. In a modest town hall filled with a diverse crowd of supporters, from young activists and tireless community organizers to elders who had seen the cycle of oppression for far too long, Ethan stood at the podium, ready to share the full breadth of his family's legacy. He spoke eloquently of his great-great-grandfather, a man who had defied the shackles of slavery to build secret networks of safe havens and resistance, and of his beloved grandmother, whose quiet wisdom and unwavering dedication had guided him throughout his life. Every word was a testament to the sacrifices made by those who had come before him, and every pause carried the weight of generations yearning for justice. Ethan's voice, steady and resolute, recounted not only the hardships endured, but also the triumphs that had come from the unyielding belief in a better future. As he detailed the discovery of the hidden chamber, the ancient journal, and the treasure meant not for personal gain, but for the upliftment of his community, Ethan's passion resonated deeply with his audience. His plan to establish a foundation was unveiled in detail, a multifaceted initiative aimed at providing education, legal support, housing, and opportunities for the underserved. The foundation was designed to be as resilient and adaptable as the spirit of those who had struggled before him, with funds carefully distributed through secure, clandestine channels to ensure that the intended purpose remained uncompromised. In the months that followed, the foundation grew steadily. Community centers sprang up, offering safe spaces for dialogue and empowerment. Educational programs and legal clinics provided tangible support to those who had long been silenced by systemic neglect. Ethan worked tirelessly, often side by side with Mr. Bennett and other allies, to build networks that spanned not only the local community, but reached out to others in need across the region. The legacy that had once been hidden in darkness was now illuminated by collective effort and the shared belief that change was possible. On a crisp, clear evening, as Ethan strolled through the cemetery one final time, he paused by his grandmother's grave. The soft rustling of autumn leaves and the gentle murmur of the wind seemed to carry messages of gratitude and pride. In that silent moment, he whispered a quiet thank you, a tribute to every sacrifice made, every struggle endured, and every dream nurtured by his ancestors. Their fight was not over. It had merely taken on a new form, reborn in the hearts of those determined to carry the torch of justice forward. With a renewed sense of purpose and a legacy reclaimed, Ethan stepped away from the cemetery, ready to lead a future where hope, unity, and courage prevailed over oppression, and where every life could be touched by the light of a truly transformative heritage. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Let me know your thoughts and what kind of stories you'd love to hear next. See you in the next one.